Have you ever heard of Rye Whiskey Day or FRyeDay, spelled F-R-Y-E Day? You ever heard of that? Well, I've heard about it for the last 4 or 5 years. This is a whiskey holiday started by the team at Sagamore Spirit Distillery in Baltimore, Maryland. And all my research says that it goes back to 2016 is when the first Friday the 13th was started. Now, FRyeDay can be any Friday, but Friday is Friday the 13th. And a typical year is going to have 2 or 3 Friday the 13ths on the calendar. And this year it's February, March, and November. So the people who like rye whiskeys, like me, think, well, why not celebrate rye whiskey on Fridays? And especially on Friday the 13th. So here we are, and thanks to Sagamore Spirit Distillery in Baltimore. However, they are now owned by some Italian company, Ilva Savrano or something like that, the makers of Di Serono. So it's now an Italian company. Tremenda fabulous. All right, and then I bought this whiskey. This is their Reserve Series, Sherry Finish, 106 proof. All right, I bought this a couple of years ago here in Fort Worth for $64.52 apparently, but I didn't read the fine print. This is actually Indiana rye. You know, the whole purpose of Sagamore was to bring back Maryland rye into the mix. But like all whiskey companies, when you start, you have to borrow, beg, and purchase whiskeys to sell to make money. And that's what they did. So this is Indiana rye in a Maryland bottle. That's it. And now if you buy it, I guess it's going to be Italian or something. But this comes highly regarded, highly recommended. Sagamore Spirits has been, they're fairly new, just been around for about 10 years. And yet they've made a pretty good name for themselves in that time. And whiskey companies are traded like baseball cards with a bunch of 9-year-olds. So, who knows, it's like some of my favorite Texas distilleries now are owned by the French or the English or whoever. So, all right, well, I've not had any of this. I've never had a Sagamore rye. I've had plenty of Indiana rye because everybody uses MGP, right? In fact, today at the liquor store, I was going to buy a rye, and the top 3 that I was looking at all had Indiana rye in it. So it's like, okay, well, I got something else that I was interested in, and that's actually an Ohio rye. So, that's fine. But I cracked this bottle open. I've had it for 2 years. So here we go. Nice cork pop. Now this is really a spur of the moment video. Not scripted, not rehearsed, not planned. Just today's Friday. Let's celebrate together, right? So here's to rye whiskey and Sagamore Spirit and MGP in Indiana. Okay, I'm getting the sherry finish right away. Very nice. I love a sherry finished, or any wine finished whiskey for that matter. But I don't like wine. I'm not a wine guy. I like a little bit higher proof, so this is 106. This should be pretty good. So far in the nose, it's not actually real prominent, just a little bit of sherry on the nose. Stir this around in the glass a little bit. That's a little bit better. Okay, so it's a pleasant nose. Here we go. And that, very good. Outstanding. You know, with that sherry finish, really kicks in and sweetens it up. A little bit dry on the finish, but not too bad. And I don't mind that anyway. I mean, I'm fine with that. Some people think it's a big deal, I guess, but so here the proof is actually really nice too. At 106, you do get a little bit of a burn in the mouth and the back of the throat. Some of it goes up a little bit, some of it goes down a little bit. So it's very appropriate for the proof. Okay, well, that's outstanding. I don't know if they're making all their own stuff now. Because, I mean, it's been 10 years, you would think, right? So I've not checked this bottle out recently. Again, I bought this 2 years ago. Again, a couple of other whiskeys that I checked came from Indiana. So that's a common thing with rye whiskeys and even bourbons. So I can definitely recommend the Sagamore Spirit Sherry finish if you can find it. So I have a great FRyeDay, Friday the 13th, with some rye whiskey. In fact, here's the story. When I went to the Goody Goody liquor store today after work, made my selection, went up to the counter. Young lady who has helped me a lot there over the years. I asked her if she knew what FRyeDay was, you know, and she had kind of a quizzical look on her face, and no, not really. And I explained the history of FRyeDay and how it's, you know, to celebrate rye whiskey and all that. And she said, oh, well, that makes sense. She had a regular customer who came in today. He bought his regular whiskey, but then he bought a rye whiskey as well. And she had another customer come in that bought several bottles worth of rye whiskey. So, you know, she had seen an uptick in the sales of rye whiskey. And kind of, you know, it got her interest. And then when I explained it to her, well, it made sense. But here's the deal. None of the big whiskey stores, the big box stores that I go to, none of them celebrate the whiskey holidays other than St. Patrick's Day. That's the only one. And then all the other holidays, I mean, like New Year's, I mean, they sell all kinds of stuff. But St. Patrick's Day would be the only day where they kind of emphasize Irish whiskeys. But they don't do FRyeDays. They don't do International Whiskey Day or Scotch Day. They don't do Bourbon Week in September. I mean, you know, you would think that retail outlets would celebrate these days for the stuff that they're actually selling. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I mean, I do that stuff here on this channel all the time. But on the business world, they don't do it. So I don't know. Can't explain that. All right. Well, this is an intro to whiskey episode. And so I just thought, well, let's explain what FRyeDay is all about. FRyeDay. All right, this is Stab the Dragon Productions out here